This happened not even a month ago. I'm a senior in high school, and I've lived in Nevada my whole life. There's not a whole lot to do out here, but one thing my friends and I have always been into is urban exploring. We'd search for abandoned buildings, forgotten service tunnels, dead malls, anything that felt left behind. We weren't trying to break stuff or do anything illegal. It was about the atmosphere, the mystery, the vibe. The one guy in our group who always found the weirdest, creepiest places was Charles. Quiet, kind of mysterious. He'd show up with these locations none of us had ever heard of before. Half the time, I didn't even ask how he found them. One day, Charles sent us a screenshot from some sketchy Instagram account. Low follower count, blurry photos, creepy captions, weird comments, real unsettling stuff. The post said, "Dozens of abandoned mine shafts in the Mojave Desert, if you know where to look." Charles said he'd been messaging the account, and they'd given him a few locations to check out. That was all he needed. He was obsessed. So that Saturday it was me, Charles, and our other friend James. I had a Wrangler, perfect for off-road driving in the desert, so we took mine. We didn't have an actual address, just a drop pin, somewhere in the middle of the Mojave. The spot Charles marked was way off-grid, like no sign of civilization in any direction. We had turned off the highway maybe half an hour earlier, and the road we were on barely looked like a road anymore. We drove for what felt like forever. Nothing but sand, rocks, and silence. I kept checking my phone, even though I knew we didn't have service. James was in the back getting more and more pissed, saying Charles had gotten scammed by some troll account. Charles just insisted we keep going. He's stubborn about stuff like that, so I figured, fine. Let him have this. And then, just when we were about to give up, James pointed out something off to the right. At first it just looked like part of the slope, more rocks blending into the dirt. But when we got closer, we saw it. A half-collapsed wooden structure, built into the side of the hill. Old support beams partially caved in, but behind them, a dark opening. Not big, but definitely man-made. Definitely a mine shaft. Charles didn't say a word. He just pulled out his phone, opened up the offline map he'd downloaded earlier, and dropped a pin. Then he turned to James and said, "Told you." James just scoffed and said he got lucky. But I had to admit, it was pretty wild. We'd been driving in circles for over an hour, and somehow, we'd actually found something. I parked off to the side, and we all geared up. Charles had even brought masks for us. In case of dust or mold or whatever. Smart. Up close, the shaft looked even sketchier. Charles picked up a rock and tossed it in. We waited. Then heard it. Clang, clang, clang. Nothing. That thing was deep. Charles looked back and said, "If you trip on the way down, you're probably dead." Great. The slope wasn't a straight drop, thankfully, but it was steep. Real steep. The floor was loose, uneven. The kind of surface that makes you nervous with every step. Old wooden beams lined the walls. Surprisingly, they held. The deeper we went, the colder it got. And the quieter. Like the earth itself was swallowing sound. Eventually, we couldn't even see the light from the entrance anymore. Finally, we reached what felt like the bottom. The shaft leveled out, opened into a wider tunnel. It branched off in a few directions, like some kind of underground maze. Support beams every few yards. Rusted tracks buried in the dirt. Tools and debris scattered around. It smelled stale, like dust and old metal. Not rotten, just ancient. We picked a tunnel and started walking. None of us said much. There wasn't anything especially cool down there, honestly. Looked like it had all been cleared out years ago. But then, we heard something. It was faint, from deeper in the tunnel. At first, I thought I imagined it, but I looked over and saw Charles had frozen too. James whispered, "Turn off your lights." So we did. Darkness swallowed us. The sound came again. A scraping noise, like something or someone dragging metal along the tunnel floor. We stood completely still, hearts pounding, listening. The sound kept coming. Closer, closer. Then, James accidentally flicked his flashlight back on for half a second. I wanted to strangle him. Suddenly, the scraping sound stopped. Silence. Then clang. A loud, metallic crash echoed from somewhere deep in the tunnel. And then, a scream. A horrible, animalistic scream that sounded barely human. We didn't think. We just ran. I've never run faster in my life. I could hear footsteps behind us. I was in the back trying to keep up, and then I tripped. My shoe flew off. Pain shot up my leg, but I didn't have time to care. I just got up and kept going. Ahead of me, Charles and James were already climbing the slope. I threw myself after them, half barefoot, every step jamming rocks and splinters into my foot. When I finally reached the surface, I collapsed on the sand. My foot was bleeding. James and Charles practically carried me to the car. James jumped into the driver's seat and floored it. We didn't talk, just drove. Fast. We went straight to the nearest hospital. I ended up needing a tetanus shot. They cleaned out my foot and pulled out what felt like 100 splinters. I couldn't walk normally for days. A few days later, once I could walk without limping, James said he'd dropped his wallet near the mine entrance, probably when we were helping me into the car. So like idiots, we went back, just to the surface. We weren't going back inside. The wallet was gone, but we found something else. My shoe. It was lying in the dirt, a few feet from the mine entrance, torn apart, like something had bitten into it. There were teeth marks, chunks missing. We left. Haven't been back since, and I don't know what was down there. But it wasn't just some homeless guy. There was no food, no water, no way anyone could survive for long. And that scream, that was not human. Whatever it was, it's still down there, and I don't think it wants to be alone.